Welcome to Webinar Wednesday, a new webinar series hosted every first Wednesday of the month. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. The webinar will be recorded and shared on our blog and our YouTube channel in a few days. For those of you dialing in today, the slide deck will be shared via email immediately following the webinar. We also have a moderator standing by to take your questions, so please feel free to submit those via the GoToWebinar interface. If you have any ideas for additional webinar topics or something you would like to see presented, please let us know. This is the last webinar for today. On June 6th, we will review our RPI Loss and COM Object Integration, AP Agility for Kofax KTA, and the OnBase Approval Manager. Please visit www.rpic.com/webinars to register online. My name is Chris Tan, and I'm a senior consultant here at RPI with 6+ years of experience delivering ECM solutions, primarily focused in the healthcare space. I reside here in Kansas City, and I am a husband and a father of 2.
My name is LaBonte. I'm a project coordinator with RPI. I have managed multiple client projects, including upgrades, health checks, and new solution designs. While I don't happen to be a husband or father of 2, I do happen to be the Kansas City's most eligible bachelor. So today's agenda, we're going to cover a little bit about us, RPI, and how we go through upgrades and which upgrades we have gone through, why some businesses do upgrade, planning an upgrade project from a project management standpoint, and Chris will kind of go over upgrade and delivery and cutover. At the end, we'll have a Q&A segment as well.
RPI Consultants is a comprehensive professional services organization with over 18 years of experience designing, implementing, and supporting ERP, ECM, and data capture solutions. We have roughly 80 full-time employees based out of our office locations in Tampa, Baltimore, and Kansas City. We offer many different services and specialize in product partnerships with companies like Highland, Kofax, and Infor. In terms of RPI and upgrades, we have performed over 36 upgrades this past year. Upgrades can be done on your own, but we are typically engaged to advise due to our often repeated experience with these types of projects. Upgrades can be big or small, largely dependent on the scope or timeline. Our services include offering ad hoc support and advice for internal staff, upgrade training, and most common, facilitating the entire upgrade project. Now we will discuss various reasons to upgrade your environment. There are a lot of reasons to upgrade an enterprise solution, including the opportunity to take advantage of new features and functionality. Software end of life is probably the most common reason to upgrade. Customers want to stay supportable with the software vendor. New features and functionality are also a major reason to upgrade. This includes end user features, new clients, and platform updates. Fixing bugs and ending user frustration is also a common reason to upgrade. Finally, software compatibility with third-party applications, as well as staying on the cutting edge, are also reasons for an upgrade. In terms of types of upgrades, vendors often make the distinction between a patch, low effort, minimal changes, and an upgrade, high effort, significant changes. This distinction doesn't always make sense, as some of the patches take just as much work in testing. An in-place upgrade is upgrading the application on an existing hardware in your environment. A hard cutover is creating a net new environment and transitioning your database and documents to this upgraded environment. Lastly, a phased rollout option is supported in software such as OnBase, where not all clients and components have to be on the new version.
Okay, so now that we have discussed why to upgrade, let's go over the next steps where we can take a high-level look at some of the keystones of planning for a successful upgrade. You always want to start out with building your foundation. You need to give yourself a clear vision behind your efforts by defining your purpose or objective statement. This is going to give you your requirements and define the why for your end users. This is going to start leading you into developing a high-level project plan where you want to start building out some of your phases. For example, right now you're in planning, you'll move to a test server, UAT, go live, just some very high-level overview there. From there, you can start going through each one of these phases, digging into more documentation, more detail, and as you revisit each phase, it'll be kind of an iterative process to identify and allocate some of your resources, your stakeholders. This also includes any outside vendors, of course. As you move through that, you'll speak with them, allocate your resources, and build out a level estimate for each responsibility to develop your timeline. Now, first schedule is usually pretty optimistic, but obviously necessary. You need to try to maintain realistic expectations to communicate with any of your stakeholders for these requirements. Point being, really be upfront with the nature of your goals to stay on course throughout your project. As you dig into your documentation, you may also be aware of some of the low-level requirements, such as any licensure. You'll need to assess what you currently have, what you need to get rid of, and then any technical or hardware requirements. Of course, follow the specs that are in your documentation as well. One of the biggest points of frustrations for any upgrade is just something simple like an under-spec server, for instance. And while you're focusing on that technical documentation, building out your schedule, don't lose sight of any of your established internal processes in your project schedule. For example, some organizations may have change management procedures where any changes to your production server need to go through a change request. You'll want to build in lead time for these changes. That way you can address any change request, any documentation that needs to be submitted well ahead of schedule. This also includes any security or access requirements. Access speaks a little bit more to any outside vendors. Security is going to be, let's say for instance, if you have a utility tool that's going to help you copy over from production to your test environment. You want to make sure your security team is on board with all the tools, everything you might be using. That way you don't suffer any unnecessary setbacks throughout your project. Plan for any downtime. Some environments need to be up and have end user access 24/7. In this case, you need to address when copy over may be, when you need to have users out of the system. This may be on a weekend, for instance. Just plan ahead of time. Make sure you document and add visibility and responsibility to your plan. And of course, once you do this, this leads you to developing a communication plan. So everyone can agree, great communication is vital to any successful project. So it's always preferred to over communicate than under. Defining your communication plan really comes down to creating a necessary dialogue between stakeholders that drive you towards completion. So define your stakeholders first. This is going to be anyone that's directly or indirectly impacted by your project. This can be primarily focused usually on executive sponsors, functional technical managers, end users, IT teams, any outside resources. Now you've defined the who, you need to define the what. So find their roles, find their responsibilities, address them to system admin teams, maybe someone's in charge of testing, who's going to come up with your training plan, who has approval and sign off each one of your phases so that you know you can move on to the next wave, right? So communication plan is going to also be made up of, maybe your weekly sync up meetings where you need to delegate your tasks to. You need to be aware of any overlap in responsibility as well. Clearly define who has what role, who has what responsibility. Also define if there's any capability gaps. It may prove worthwhile to your upgrade to wait a couple of weeks for the right stakeholders to be engaged. Point is, engage a diverse, disciplined, and capable team for optimal results. Then use your deliverables to establish a method to ask questions, concerns, or offer any critical feedback. You'll also be defining your scope through this process. You'll want to complete a technical audit of your internal system, plan for any network or storage growth that might occur. Also assess if this upgrade includes any new functionality. Does it eliminate any old functionality? Scope needs to be clear to all your stakeholders, otherwise you risk derailment, timeline extensions, increase of budget. Make it visible, make it known, and then have clear sign off on all your design documentation. You'll want to stick to the limits of your scope of the project, keep your enhancements as a separate project, and then as you progress through each one of these build items, of course, build out your training documentation. It's an upgrade. Obviously, there's going to be changes. The earlier you start preparing material for end users, the better, and the quicker you can move through testing, training, and then, of course, into go live. One of the last things we want to assess now that you understand the scope of your project is you can take a look at some of the risks that might arise. Plan accordingly, try to look towards the future and assess what might be some of the unknown qualities. So right at kickoff, this is not when you start preparing for a project. You need to be ready to go right at kickoff and have all your responsibilities, due dates, timelines, all assigned. You don't want to introduce risk to your project right at the very beginning. Access can kind of go back towards third-party vendors, where you want to make sure that they have the adequate VPN, RDP access, admin server rights, software roles. Any of these, if they're not set up in a timely manner, it's going to cause a timeline extension and, of course, an impact to your budget sometimes even. One of the biggest things I can hit on here is having proper testing plans and procedures. So you need to develop your test scripts, your test cases for UAT, make sure all that is signed off accordingly by your sponsor or whoever you have deemed, of course, in charge of it. Having an adequate testing plan is going to make sure that your go live goes smooth and thereafter. If you have any new features, functionalities, upgrading other systems, you need to account for any budget or timeline risk. Usually it's going to be advised to stick to the scope of your upgrade, separate these out to other projects. So that's the PM portion to focus on. Next would be the technical aspect that Chris will go over.
Now we will discuss the upgrade delivery and cutover process. There are a number of technical and business tasks that need to be completed to effectively upgrade a production environment with minimal disruption. As part of our upgrade analysis, we would review your current architecture, recommend in-place replacements for end-of-life components, and provide you with a technical architecture diagram that will adhere to our best practices, offer scalability, and ensure smooth transition from your current environment to your new upgraded environment. We would utilize the latest and greatest supported software versions to maximize performance and functionality. As part of the upgrade process, we would build out your new environment in a pre-prod environment. We would stage a copy of your current database and documents and prepare the environment for user acceptance testing. Once all test plans have been successfully executed, we would work with you to determine your go live cutover date and time. As a best practice, user acceptance testing is a crucial part of the upgrade process. Businesses must have test cases prepared, and this allows users to fully experience new features and functionality. We recommend driving testing daily and to obtain sign-off from various stakeholders regarding the completion of UAT. At the time of cutover, we would shut down your current environment and upgrade your database to align with your new application servers. In addition, any documents remaining in your current production environment would be migrated to the new environment. The updated database would be associated with the new environment and validated to ensure a successful cutover. Thank you for attending today's webinar. At this time, we will open the floor to any questions you may have regarding the topics that we've discussed today.
Thank you, guys. What are some useful tools that both of you have found in managing an upgrade?
Sure. So one of the biggest key points to probably going back to like the communication process of an upgrade, you want to find some central repository to kind of house your dashboard where you have your project plan easily accessible. This is of course going to have all your responsibilities tied to it, so you want to make sure anyone can have full visibility to it, along with maybe any meeting notes, make sure those are well dispersed, an issues log where you can track any issues that are known and need to be mitigated, and of course maybe even an action item log where there's certain deliverables that need to be gotten through.
From a technical standpoint, I like to use certain pieces of free software out there like Notepad++ to review configuration files, XML files, INIs. I also like using a program called WinMerge to do a compare and contrast for files in the old convention versus the new. This also has the ability to do file folder structure comparison for web service calls. Applications like Postman and Fiddler are some of the apps that I use. Thanks for the great question. We had reviewed the topics at a very high level, so if there are any topics that we didn't cover or items that you'd like us to dive into greater detail, please let us know for future webinars. If you visit our webinars page, you can register for upcoming webinars, and you can also watch recordings from our past webinars. You can also visit our knowledge base, which has a lot of great content, including free white papers, case studies, product demos, and help articles. Thank you for dialing in, and we hope to hear from you soon.